It's like we never left. Welcome into the Calcio Connection podcast, connecting with you Italian football fans from all over the world. I am Alex Donno. He's Jerry Mancini. Jerry, we're probably both going to be a little rusty when it comes to talking Calcio and talking Serie A. It's been almost a year to the day. I think it was like mid-August last year was the last time we did one of these. It's been way too long. But with all the changes in Serie A, so many movements when it comes to coaches, so many new players in the league, we figured if there was ever a time to start doing this thing again, the time is now. How are you?
I am fantastic. I still thought that Ciro Immobile played for Lazio, but that's not the case.
He doesn't?
Unfortunately, he doesn't. But he's with Bologna. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But, it's been good. It's been a year off. Became a father, and then it's been a lot of work. So, yeah, it's life-changing. I'll tell you that much. It's
man.
I understand what you go through now.
Hey, congratulations on being a father. And we're both fathers now. I'm father of a 7-year-old who still, drives me crazy as if he was in the terrible twos. So we're in the same boat. We got Jerry actually took some fantastic notes of things we're going to discuss on this episode. But before we get into that, Jerry, I want to take a look at the betting odds for Serie A this year. I think we can both agree, not only based on the season that they just had, but having good stability in the offseason, including retaining Antonio Conte, which was very much in doubt. Remember, right after the season, it looked like Conte was going to part ways with Napoli, as Conte often does. He's the journeyman, and, he tends to not stay put anywhere for very long. But he and De Laurentiis were able to come to an agreement for Conte to continue in charge of Napoli. And, Napoli, every reason to be favored as they are to repeat as Serie A champions at plus 160 odds. Then you've got Inter at plus 280. I certainly have thoughts on them being an Interista. Juve at plus 500, followed by Milan plus 600. Then you have Roma, Atalanta, Lazio, Fiorentina in that order. Any of those, Jerry, jump out to you in terms of the teams kind of at that top of the odds list to win the league?
I think there's good value on Roma. I really do.
Yeah.
They've been very active in the transfer market. Gasperini has proven to get high results with teams. I think the counterpoint to this though is that, and we'll talk about our managers later of who we think is going to be good or bad, is that with Gasperini, I think it's going to take time though for him to implement his tactics. Atalanta wasn't built in a season. It was built in multiple seasons. So I think that's I'm not sure how he's going to do, but I can't believe Juventus is plus 500. Is this here? I can't I got. Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Plus 500.
Plus 500.
I don't like Juve. They don't have they didn't get their transfer market in place until very late July, and a credit to Carlo Garganese, who has really broken down the transfer market of Juve on his podcast, which he's done a really good job. But I think it's between Inter or Napoli who will. I think it's going to be a two-headed spear there, but there's always a team that always surprises you out of the blue, though. Who do you think is who do you have your money on? Are you looking at Milan with Allegri?
I think that there's some value in there at plus 600 for Milan. I know that they haven't, set the world on fire with their transfer market. Modric going there is very interesting. I know he's got to be pushing 40 by now, but he can still play. And so he's going to, spend the latter stages of his career at Milan. I can remember 7-8 years ago when Inter were pushing to sign Modric, and he ended up staying at Real Madrid all that extra time. I think the safe money is on Napoli, and it's based on already having a proven roster and the consistency of Conte. And you always know Conte is really, really going to push when it comes to transfer market, not just in the summer window, but in the winter window. Obviously Inter have they have the talent, of course, but there's so many questions there, Jerry. And I'm watching Inter now with some frustration. They're playing like their first major preseason friendly against Monaco, and obviously for Monaco, the French league starts. It's about to start, so this is like Monaco's final friendly. It's Inter's first major friendly. But Inter are down 1-0. They're actually also down a man, which I thought was kind of a bogus sending off. Like Çalhanoğlu got his second yellow for something that wasn't even a foul. Like it was just horse shit. But, still Inter have done a lot of what they did last season, creating chances, getting into dangerous areas, and just not being able to finish. I feel like too many of the same players are back from last season, right? A group that it's like, how do you bounce back from the worst loss in the history of the Champions League final? Like there are a lot of demons to exercise. You bring back most of the same players. And now, of course, Jerry, as we have at the top of our list here when it comes to coaching changes in Serie A, right off the bat, Inter lost Simone Inzaghi to Al Hilal, which was, really the talk of the early part of the offseason. It was right after the Champions League final loss that really started to, well, actually, it was even before the Champions League final that the rumors were out there. And then after the final is when that really ramped up. And so you go from Simone Inzaghi, who's an ultra proven Italian manager, to Christian Kivu, who has just barely any experience. He's a former Inter player, which does kind of help. He understands, the meaning behind the brand, and he understands the squad. But it's a huge gap in experience to go from Simone Inzaghi to Kivu, and I think that's something else you have to consider, is that it's a team that is doing it with a manager who hasn't seen the same types of battles at that role that Inzaghi has seen.
That's actually very good point. What is it, like he only coached like 10 or 11 games with Parma?
Yeah.
If I heard properly, like
recently. Something like that. 10 games.
So he's very raw. Yeah, like you don't know what you're gonna get, but I think the issue stems beyond just the coaching, because you touched on Simone Inzaghi departing Inter, and my question is, you being an Inter fan, what is his legacy with Inter? What would he be remembered as when you think about Simone Inzaghi? Because I have the answer for this, but I want to hear you first.
I think he underachieved a little bit. If I'm being perfectly honest. And that's where I start. It's not a one word answer, but the first word I'll give you is underachieved. For him to only have produced one league title, despite having probably the best overall squad in the league for 4 seasons, to only get one league title out. He did win a lot of trophies, when you consider some Coppa Italia and Supercoppa wins. But to only have one Serie A title is disappointing. I thought Inzaghi had more talent than the actual results that he proved in that regard. So that to me is like the profound, kind of the headliner, is that he underachieved a little bit based on the talent he had. But it's not all bad. Like I'm gonna have some fond memories, Jerry, of Inzaghi, because it was always an entertaining brand of football with Inzaghi on the bench. His the way he uses his wing backs, the attacking 3-5-2, the creativity, which I think is why he became such a sought-after manager overseas. It's still crazy to me that of all the options he could have had, he goes to Saudi Arabia, because they wrote him what was it, like 40 million? They wrote him this crazy blank check to go out there. Like, I feel like he could have gone to a more relevant European powerhouse than to Al Hilal. And so, yeah, listen, I was always entertained watching Inzaghi ball. Like, I was never bored watching Inter. But at the end of the day, Jerry, and I know like last season, it was Inter were almost a victim of their own success in a way, because they came away trophyless last year, despite being in it for every competition, right? It came down to the final couple of match days for the Scudetto. They got to the Champions League final, shit the bed there, of course, but they deep run in Champions League, deep run in Coppa Italia. So it's like they almost hurt themselves by playing so many extra matches compared to, Napoli, who was playing once a week, and some of the other teams. And it's not an excuse, because I still feel like Inter had enough depth that they could have produced some results. So I think if they had had one fewer competition to play in, they probably would have won a trophy or two last year. But to come away from that season without a single trophy, it's inexcusable to me.
I just think that they were trying to win everything and they didn't really focus on one thing. I think the goal should have been the Scudetto, and then it should have been Champions League. I know Champions League is always higher than the Scudetto, but for me, a Scudetto was the goal here because they were always in first for most of the season, and then Napoli kind of like in the second half of the season just kind of took away with it because they didn't have to play anything but once a week in Serie A. So I think that really benefited them. As for Coppa Italia, that was a big disappointment. I don't even think they made the finals, if I remember exactly. But yeah, like, and then you go to Champions League, and I'll tag on a question onto this, is that I don't think the rumors prior to the game, like prior to everything happening, everyone was talking about how was Inzaghi's departure the issue with Inter and why they played so bad and the mentality and like knowing that he wasn't going to be there anymore and like the betrayal. I don't think that was the issue. I just think that this Inter squad is a very aging team, like you said earlier, and you can see how PSG was so young and they reinvented themselves, not being that galactic kind of buying that Neymar kind of guy anymore, and re-strategize it because they've been good at. PSG is one of the best at producing young players. They really are, and I think that they made a new direction. If I'm saying this right, but like they stopped buying these big key players and want to make it more of a youth team with some good talent in it. And you can see how they were moving the ball in the finals. It's just Inter couldn't keep up, and that aging backline they have. So it is disappointing. I think in the first 3 seasons, he was there for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 3 seasons, yes, he should have done way more. I think in the 4th season, I think they chewed on more than they could have because they were just playing all their older players and they never gave chances to their youth.
Right.
And that's not just Inzaghi though. I think it's a Serie A problem. So which has been the issue to World Cup and why Italy can never really do well because we keep on playing the same guys, and never the new youth or try to like develop players to integrate for the future. So that's how I kind of see the finals for the Champions League. But I'll say this. I felt that Inzaghi's football was way better at Lazio.
Really?
Than it was at Inter because I just think the team. Here's the problem with Lazio. They never had the bench, and that's why he was able to produce more at Inter. Yeah. Think about it. He had Luis Alberto, the number 10. He had Savic. He had Lucas Leiva as a proper defensive midfielder to defend to back the two. He had Ciro Immobile playing. He reinvented Ciro Immobile. Let's be real. Like that guy was producing over 20 goals a season under Inzaghi. He had Sena Lulic, who was one of the best wingbacks in the last 10 years before he retired. He was using Lazzari as a wingback, which he actually did well. Then we had Acerbi, which was doing well with Radu. Like they had a good starting 11, and Caicedo was great off the bench.
He was, and then they tried to bring Caicedo to Inter, but it was just too late. Too late for him.
The problem was that they didn't have the bench players to come on to back up a Savage, to back up an Alberto, and that was always the issue. And I'm not saying that Lazio was the better team. I'm saying they were the more exciting team for me when I watch the brand of Simone Inzaghi. Maybe I'm biased.
I will say one thing to what you're saying. I wish Inter had a player or more players like Luis Alberto when it came to just the creativity, being to take guys off the dribble, because that's one of like the flaws that I've looked at Inter in recent seasons. Like, and obviously when Conte is your manager, that's a little bit more like it's more system based. But for Inzaghi, I think they could have used more creativity like that, truly, just in terms of guys who are able to really change the game one-on-one with their dribbling. like sometimes Denzel Dumfries, who is like when he's on, he's great. When he's off, it's like the very high ceiling, high floor. Sometimes he's able to do that from the right wing back spot. But I thought that they were missing a lot more creativity. They just had, too many players who were able to make passes and get in dangerous areas, but not able to just create enough individual brilliance. And maybe he had a little bit more of that at times with Lazio that he was missing, a Luis Alberto type of player. So I'm with you on that one. I agree. And Jerry, you hit it on the head, and so did Anthony with this comment that, yeah, Inzaghi was partly to blame for how Inter played in the UCL final by not preparing them properly. But Jerry is right. Their squad was just aging last season. So the way I look at it, Jerry, I mean, even had Inter been completely dialed in, they're still not beating PSG on that night. Like I'm not going to say that's the reason why they lost. Maybe it just wouldn't have been as bad, because when you find out like 2 weeks before the final that your manager is about to, take a job in Saudi Arabia, that was a distraction. There's no question to me that was a distraction for the club, but I don't think that distraction was the only reason why they lost that match.
No, for sure. I don't look at those things at the end of the day, regardless if he's going or not. Half of these players might be going or not. There's always coaching carousel and all this stuff, but like,
yeah,
I think as the players, it's a responsibility to show up and play to your best, right? So, it's unfortunate that 2 Champions League finals, both runners up. Like I said, the result wise, yes, he did way better at Inter. He had the squad, but when I see the actual football of how Inzaghi played, I just think that him having Luis Alberto and Savage.
Oh, by the way, it looks like I think Lautaro
made
just
the
scored.
difference.
Lautaro just scored in the friendly against Monaco, so 1-1 now.
I hate friendlies. I hate friendlies with a passion, guys. Like it's like you're just praying that no one gets hurt, and I'm gonna kind of like counter this with the NFL. If anybody watches the NFL, I know in Italy it's huge. There has been
Is it?
It's pretty big, and
I think it's getting bigger. Yeah,
it's getting bigger, I guess. But NFL is worldwide, right?
That's true. Yeah,
it's the second biggest after the World Cup, I think. No.
Probably the Super. I know
Super Bowl.
People in Europe who don't watch any NFL all season long, but then they just randomly watch the Super Bowl, because I guess that's what you do. I'm sure a lot of people, in the States or in Canada where Jerry and I live, if they don't necessarily watch a lot of European football, they'll watch the Champions League final. So yeah, it's probably like that.
I digress, but
yeah,
my point is that there's been so many injuries in preseason, and these games don't count in the NFL right now. And it kind of like brings me back to Calcio, where you have all these preseason games and you are concerned that, God forbid, someone breaks a leg or something and they miss half the season. What do you do after, right? So that's why friendlies. Do you think there's too many friendly games that they play? Like, do you need to play 8 friendly games before? Like, I always wonder, like, we might have to bring Joseph Fischetti on from the Forza Napoli podcast, because he's really good at this stuff, and he'll give a good assessment. But like I always wonder why.
I think for certain teams, like in the case of like Inter, Juventus, who played in the Club World Cup, I think 8 friendlies is too much. Because this was a weird season, because then after all the compositions you played in last year, to have. Because even if you don't get to the knockouts in Club World Cup, you're still playing at least 3 games, right? Which is a whole extra thing. So yeah, I think that amount of friendlies is too much. I think probably like 5 or 6 maybe is the right number. Because like I think the good thing about friendlies is, especially when you've got a new coach, I guess it's good to kind of get your system into place in your formations, but also to be able to give opportunities to like second team players and younger players that may not see the field as much during the season. So I think there is value in friendlies, but 8.
I'm guessing 8, 6. But think about it. They play, so the season starts in 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
They play international games throughout the season. They play Champions League, Europa League, Coppa Italia, all these tournaments. And then by the time the season is done, it's the end of May. Okay? You are either playing World Cup again, you're either playing the Euro again, but then you go to preseason again, and you're in your friendlies, and then you're going back into the season. I just think it's so taxing on the players. And there's been I remember Kevin De Bruyne was talking about how he brought it up last summer, I think it was, where they feel like they're playing so much, and they want more time off because their body is not recovering in time. So just curious about that, right?
And then, by the way, you mentioned Kevin De Bruyne, who's now at Napoli, which is another one of those interesting off-season developments. But let's talk. We just talked some Inter. What about Lazio? As Jerry, if I had just woken up from a 15-month nap, it would feel like Maurizio Sarri never left. Right? They parted ways in March of 2024. He's on sabbatical for a full season. Now he's back on the Lazio bench this coming year. What's been the buzz for Sarri's return?
Well, I feel bad for him because of the transfer market block. I'm gonna be honest. There's 3 parameters apparently you're supposed to meet as a team, which is supposed to be your equity versus your the cash you have versus what you have as assets or what you owe in assets and stuff. It's the most confusing stuff. So I am not a financial transfer market guru. I'm gonna say it in simple terms, which I think I wrote it here. Basically, so they didn't meet financial requirements. That's it. Yeah. And now they're forced to enter their season with the squad they have. And I think this can be a benefit for Italy, because they have some young players such as Matteo Cancellieri, Nicola Ravella, and it will give an opportunity to some of these young players on Lazio to earn an opportunity and a chance to carve a role under Maurizio Sarri. The one benefit I would say is that because this is the squad that they have going into the season, Sarri has more time to work with what he has and can implement his tactics and his ideology. So I look at that's the big positive, but the big negative is that they don't really have a creative midfielder that can kind of move the ball like a Luis Alberto they used to have. And
exactly.
And their number 9, Tati, he's boots, man. He is so boots. I wish that Lazio would just stop spending $20 million, because every time they spend double-digit money, they buy the worst players. I don't get it, man.
I've noticed that. The cheaper signings end up being a lot better. They develop these players, but when they try to get flashy players, it never works.
It doesn't work. They got Noslin last year because Barone won him, and he was a disappointment. And but of their recent signings last year, like Noslin, there's Bella I forgot his name, Della Besharu, and a few others. I'm hoping one of them can have a bounce back season like Felipe Caicedo had after a disappointing first season with Lazio. So it's gonna be challenging, because the first 2 games that Romagnoli can't play because of a suspension, I believe, and that's gonna be challenging because Gigot hasn't been training with the team. I heard that he's injured. Some are saying he wants out because he hasn't been playing under Sarri in the preseason. So I don't know what the true story is, but it's going to be an interesting first half of the season because they can't buy any players till January. And based on what I've been hearing too on some podcasts, is that Lazio needs to make some sales, or else if they don't make sales, I think they could still be in the red zone to not buy any players in January. So when it comes to the transfer market, I hate it. I think it's the worst time because I'm going to be honest, 1 out of 10 of these reporters, or whatever you want to call them, are so one's reliable, I would say, and the rest are just shooting out links and reports just for clickbait. I hate to say it, man. But the DiMarzio used to be so good, and then like I've heard like, or I've seen like he's kind of dipped off a bit. But my least favorite is Fabrizio Romano. I just found out he has a show on DAZN, and it is the worst show I have ever watched in my life.
You watched it?
Terrible. I turned it off in 2 minutes. It's terrible.
He does the show in English or Italian?
It's in English with another guy, and they're talking about like the headlines. It's really bad. It's dry. Boring. But yeah, it's terrible. But yeah.
I'm kind of tempted to watch this now, but I don't. DAZN is like the one streaming service that I don't have. I did do like the at least during the Club World Cup, they had like the free, and I was in Europe during it. So I don't know in the States what it was on, but it was on DAZN, and they did like you could do a free trial just for the Club World Cup, which I did that, but I've never been a regular DAZN subscriber before.
Well, I was on it today, and just to go, and I know we're going off topic here. Just they're becoming more like a Amazon Prime account, just for people who were wondering. So I realized that they have Serie A on DAZN now, but what they're doing is that you have to get like a DAZN Plus, and so. And what you get is the beIN Sports. So they have Fubo. So they show the Serie A on DAZN, but Fubo is the true holder of it. So you know how on Amazon Prime when you buy like other subscriptions and
I've done that before.
Yeah, that's how it is with DAZN. I just learned today. It's called DAZN Plus, and it's interesting because I don't mind that because it's all in one package, but I already paid for enough stuff, so I don't need to get extra. But it's something for the future. But yeah, it is convenient when it's all in one. Yeah. I don't have a Fire Stick, so
let's same here. Well, so let's recap some of the coaching carousel, the managerial carousel, Jerry and Serie A. We mentioned Gasperini joining Roma, which is weird because he was at Atalanta for so long that he just kind of became synonymous with that club. But I think it was the right time for him to make that move. And obviously, like, he did so well at Atalanta. Atalanta has like been usually better within Serie A than Roma has, but Roma as an organization has a higher ceiling. So if Gasperini wants to reach a higher ceiling, it's much higher at Roma than it is at Atalanta. So I think that was a good move for him. We talked about Sarri returning to Lazio, Kivu leaving Parma to manage Inter, which of course is, I think, the biggest question mark just based on his experience level or lack thereof, right? To go from Inzaghi to Kivu. Not saying Christian can't do the job. In fact, from the little I've seen of his tactics, I think there's a lot of promise there, but it's yet to be determined, right? You had Juric replacing Gasperini. Barone leaves Lazio for Torino, and Allegri joins Milan. I think that can be very significant. Now, obviously, Allegri, he was he did win a Scudetto at Milan right before going to Juventus, and they had a dynasty there while he was there. We saw his return to Juventus a couple of years ago. It was not as easy when they didn't have the same talent that they had when he was there. So Allegri is not necessarily someone who could just wave a magic wand and like conjure a Scudetto the way that Conte can. I give Conte credit for having done that so many times, but I think it is a step up, and I would assume Milan's defensive shape is going to improve. They're going to concede a lot less, and even if the football may not always be exciting, I think Allegri ball can benefit them a lot.
Well, there's a lot of question marks here. So, like we said earlier in the show, like with Roma, Gasperini, this is the right project for him. If Roma is willing to spend the money, which they have in recent seasons, and are willing to buy him better players, I guess you can say, as opposed to, can't say better actually, because Atalanta's produced some really good players under Gasperini,
but mostly homegrown, because Atalanta, their academy is so well run because they understand, like, we're not going to be able to make flashy purchases, so we better develop players, young players in-house, then we can either sell them for high transfer fees or they can help us win. So it's like, but you're right. They can't spend the way Roma can spend.
I think the biggest question mark is, are teams willing to be patient when it gets bad? Will you stick it out for a season or two so these coaches can develop their teams with the right personnel, the right ideas, because you've seen so often that teams like Milan was a prime example. Right away, they fired their coach last year, and then they went to get what was his name?
Conceição, which
Conceição. Was it
I
just
really thought that would work out better than it did with him.
and then
Because he's a really good manager.
That's right. They started with Fonseca.
Yeah.
They got rid of him. They go to Carousel. They get rid of him. Like you cannot be getting a coach for 6 weeks, fire him, get a coach for another 6 weeks, fire him. Like if you want results, you have to look at the long term as well. You can't look at the short term. Coaches today don't have enough leash, I find, in order to develop their team to the point where they can be successful. I think Conte was a one-off last season where in one season he was able to do it. But
I think that's just a Conte thing because he's
is
done
a Conte
that in a lot
thing.
of places.
I think he just has the experience to do it. He's an anomaly there, but like it's like Inter's aspirations are to win right now. I think Kivo is a big, and I want to give credit to Nima on the Italian football podcast. Okay, Nima said a good point, is that they had the chance to sign Allegri. Milan signed them.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Inter did not go after Allegri. You have
I thought they would.
You have an experienced team. Why would you not? Why would you pass on a coach who has shown results in the past? Yeah, okay, his second stint with Milan wasn't as good as his first, but still, like, I just think that Allegri has shown to be a very successful manager. He's been there twice with Juve, right? Allegri?
Twice with Juve, and this will be his second time with Milan. You know, and to what you're saying about the Kivu move, to me, it would have made more sense if they were going to make more sales and make the team younger. And they have, and like, one of the frustrating things about supporting Inter and following them in the transfer market, it's not the buying, but it's how bad they are at selling. Like they really have a tough time moving on from players and getting the transfer fees that they need and that these players deserve. And like we've had some sagas, Jerry, this offseason. I mean, Çalhanoğlu, it's weird watching him still in an Inter shirt, given that Lautaro called him out in the Club World Cup, and he was trying to force a move back to Turkey, to Galatasaray, that fell apart. And it's like it's awkward him still, and I hope that they're able to sort it out and keep the locker room well, because I think sometimes when you have a player who wants to leave and is that close to leaving, it's difficult for the chemistry, right? And the Aslani is a guy that they've struggled to sell. There's certain players that really really old players don't have a lot of like transfer value, but it's weird. Like a Cherby is still on the team and probably going to play a really important part this year. So a part of me, if you're going to go with Kivu as your manager, big part of me says like you need to go younger and maybe try to start a new cycle, because I don't know if Inter are starting a new cycle or not. It's like they're still holding on to the previous Inzaghi cycle with a couple of new pieces here and there. Boni, Sukic, Luis Enrique. They've been trying to buy Lookman from Atalanta for like 2 months now, which probably won't happen, but maybe will still happen. But it's been like I think that their transfer market has been too much stuck in quicksand. Because Jerry, I believe for a new manager, I think he should be able to put more of his own fingerprints on it and get some new players in. I don't think Inter have made enough changes.
No, for sure. And you talk about Lookman. Credit again to Nima and Carlo. Great breakdown on their Q&A. They've really helped. I've been giving them a lot of credit on this show because they're the reason
they do a great job. Yeah,
they do a great job, and they've kept me informed on what's going on. And they broke down. If you guys haven't heard it, you should listen to it. It's a really good breakdown about the Lookman situation, and I think everyone's to be blamed in that whole debacle, if you want to call it that. But I don't know if I would want to sign Lookman. As good as he is, okay, I want to ask people this question and tweet on Twitter if you have a chance. I think Lookman's so much in the wrong here. Like, I know that Atalanta had promised him that they would sell him, and then they just came out from Percassi that they would sell him, but not to a Serie A team at the right price. If it was like a team outside the league, and if it's within the Serie A team, it has to be the right price. But outside, it doesn't matter the price if it's 40 or 50. And then you got Lookman, who's mad because he feels like he's been betrayed by the club, who said they were going to sell him. And even last summer, when he did the whole thing with PSG, and they were able to get a sale with PSG, and then 3 days before the transfer market closed, and they couldn't get someone to replace him, so they didn't do the sale, and he was making a big fuss. And then this time around, he goes off his social media, shuts his phone down. No one can find him. I don't like this. And I'm going to bring this back to the NFL. I've seen this in recent weeks in the NFL where players
Michael
hold
Parsons.
out. Yeah, Michael Parsons. How in the heck can you hold out when you are signed to a contract for 5 years, 2 years, 3 years? If you still have a year remaining on your contract and it's your final year, you don't have a right, I'm sorry, to like just hold out. Imagine if you did that at your job, or if I did at my job. I'd be fired tomorrow, man, if I hold out, wanting more money, wanting whatever changes I want in my job. They'd be like, there's the door. We'll find somebody else to get it, to get someone to replace you. And I know that sports is a different world, but Lookman is making good money at Atalanta to play football. Like, you wake up tomorrow to play football. You let your team deal with if they're able to sell you. If they're not able to sell you and your contract expires, or with 6 months before it expires, then you can decide where you want to go. But for me personally, I just think these players sometimes are just too. They feel they're more entitled than to anything possible. And like, yeah, I get the promises, and I know people are gonna say, well, he feels betrayed, he feels this, he feels that. But at the end of the day, you're still under contract. You're still making millions of dollars to play a sport. Show up, be more professional, because if I'm Inter, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, do I want this in my change room? Who am I to not know? Like, does he do this to Inter down the road and says, I don't want to be here anymore, and he starts a debacle and he causes problems in the change room? What do you do then? Like, does it affect morale? Like, I just like it's just not a good look for me. I don't like it. I don't like players.
And I think I think you're right. But to me, that's just one of the three perspectives. I think everybody is in the wrong. Like I think Atalanta, that's a dirtbag move. The way that they have made him promises in the past, and I do feel like there is an element of them holding him hostage. He could be more professional about it, but I don't think Atalanta is blameless here. You know, from an Inter point of view, I can't help but feeling they are wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to negotiate for a player when the other side doesn't seem to be negotiating in good faith. At a certain point, that's on you. Like, how is it a month into the saga you find out, well, they're not going to sell him within the Serie A, that they only want to send him abroad? Like, you should have been able to figure that out within like the first day of negotiations, not in the second month of negotiations. So, I mean, it's unfortunately, if you waste this much time on a player, that just the other club is going to make it so difficult. Because I think sometimes, and this is not just Inter, clubs do this around Europe, where you feel that if you get the green light from the player, that gives you so much leverage that eventually you can bully the move. That if, hey, Lookman wants to be here, he agrees to personal terms, they don't want to sell him here, too bad. You have no other choice. Like, I give credit to Atalanta. Like, I think that there's been some dirtbag moves on their side, but then at the same time, I give them credit for sticking to their guns to say, we know what this player is worth. The price is not the same in Italy as it is abroad. We don't want to send him to a direct rival. So like they're not budging, and Inter have wasted way too much time. So shame on them. You know, shame on Atalanta because I'm a big believer in the will of the player. Like, you don't have to necessarily sell every single player who wants to leave, because obviously, you know, it's just not always feasible. The offer has to be right. But at the same, like, Atalanta has had multiple opportunities to allow Lookman to move on at reasonable financial terms, and they haven't done it. So they're not innocent. Inter are not innocent. And then, yeah, to your point, Jerry, Lookman is not handling this in a professional manner now.
Well, what kills me is for a month and a half, you've known that the price has been 50 million for Lookman, and Inter are making these deals 42 plus 3.
Yeah, and it's the same
4.
offer every time. It's like, oh, you don't want our 45 million? Here's another offer for 45 million. Like, what? How is that? Do you think you're going to change their mind based on nothing? The offer is the same every time.
And it's funny because there are rumors that Inter wants Rovella from Lazio, and he has a bio clause of 50 million. And I'm thinking here, well, if you're not willing to spend 50 million for Lookman, are you going to spend 50 million for Rovella? Like,
no.
That's why I say these reports make me laugh, because if you're not willing to, and Lookman's a better player overall than Rovella, but again, two different players too. But like overall, like, well, not better, I guess. They're both very good at what they do, but like, it all depends what you need. It's hard to say better when they're two different positions, but yeah, it's just teams make me laugh. If I ask you for 50 million, now it's 46 million plus a player they offered. And it's like, where does it end? Where just give them the 50 million. You get your player and you go. Like, and it's not, if Lookman's that good and it's gonna get better, I don't see the problem with 50 million. That's a good.
Yeah.
The problem is the transfer market doesn't have a parameter of what is a fair deal. What do you construct as like what is fair? You know what I mean? There's no like borderline. Like in hockey, you know what a fair deal kind of is. In Serie A, in the transfer market, there's no really fair market value. It's all based on subjective. Like the team thinks what they're worth, and then the buyer thinks their own kind of value. So it's always really hard. That's why the transfer market's always really difficult with teams, because they two sides have two different opinions. But it is what it is.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So, but I'll say this: of all those coaches, the worst one I'll tell you is Juric. Juric going to to Atalanta. He sucked ass at Roma, and he didn't do much better at Southampton. And I think he's gonna flop on his face with Southampton. He's gonna flop on his face at Atalanta. I think he's gonna really struggle again, and I think he's got the short leash. I think he'll be one of the first to get fired this season. That's just my opinion.
He's not going to eat panettone, Jerry.
No, he's going to be eating salami. Never mind.
Oh man. Well, listen, I can't tell you how much fun it is to be back. And by the way, Inter are now up 2-1 against Monaco. I was complaining at halftime about how frustrating they're down at 10 men and they scored 2 unanswered goals. So hey, they're showing me something. Lautaro and Thuram scored. So that's good to see that your top two, especially if the Lookman deal does not end up happening, you need Lautaro and Thuram to be good this year, and Boni, who they are bringing over from Parma. So it's going to be a little bit different in the forward lines.
No, absolutely. So I guess they should just play with a man down every game.
Right, go down to 10. Although Monaco's probably going to tie it up at some point. Jerry, it's so great to be back with you. And by the way, I want to send shout outs. We got some of our familiar faces here. Again, it's as if we never left, right? Our guy Jorge, who's been on the show before, we'll have to bring him back on. Our guy Anthony, who's been crushing it in the comments section out here. Our guy Massimo, our good friend Mas, who we're in a group chat with, Jerry, who's a really good dude. And I saw somebody else. Oh, our guy Chris DeSantis, who's a big Roma supporter, who goes to, he lives in the States, but he goes to like several Roma matches a year. He takes one for the team, and he flies over there to Italy, which of course, always a terrible time when you can fly over there and enjoy the delicious food and all the amazing scenery. It's the sacrifices we make to support our clubs.
Well, I haven't gone to Rome in so many years, and I hope to go soon.
Yeah, you were going to go like right when COVID hit, right?
We were supposed to fly out a day before they announced the pandemic. And I'm just thinking, if I had gone on that flight, man, what would have been like staying in Italy for 6 months?
You would have been like stuck over there. which would again, I can think of worse thing. You would have been stuck in Rome for 6 months or a year. Like, oh, that sounds terrible. You should have gone. But you would have been on lockdown though, so it wouldn't have been the best time.
I have family there, so I wonder how that would have worked too, though. So
yeah, I have my relatives. I've got family in Milano and in Tuscany, and they were telling me about it was but we're long. I don't want to think about COVID anymore. We're long past that. But I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day, whether you're watching this live or you're catching the replay. He is Jerry Mancini. He's always caping up for Lazio. I'm always caping up for Inter. We try to respect the other clubs as well when we can. And we'll talk to everybody again next time on another episode of Calcio Connection.
Ciao.